Welcome everyone, Evan Yo here, and today in this video we're going to be talking about Vite. Vite is a new build tool that I've been working on since last year, and we consider it to be the next generation of front-end tooling. So in this video we're going to be talking about what is Vite, why Vite, and we'll show you how to get started with it and walk through some of the cool features that Vite provides out of the box. So let's get started. First, what is Vite? If we go to the website, Vite is the French word for fast. Okay, so some may pronounce it as Vite, but it's actually the French word for fast, so we pronounce it as Vite. So Vite is a build tool. It comes with a dev server and also bundles your code for production. So if you've used Vue CLI before, you can think of it as a loose equivalent to Vue CLI, just leaner and faster. The problem that Vite is trying to solve really is just this feedback loop speed, the feedback speed during development. If you've used Vue CLI, especially in a large project, you probably are used to waiting for half a minute or even up to a minute for your dev server to spring up. And when the project gets larger, hot module replacement gets slower as well. Just editing a single file, you may have to wait a few seconds for things to update on the screen. Now, a lot of these problems are fundamentally caused by the need for bundling. And why do we have bundlers? Because in the old days, before we had native ES modules, there's no way for the browser to actually support these modularized code. So in the early days, we invented module systems like AMD or CommonJS, and we wrote our source files in those formats and let tools like Webpack, Parcel, or Browserify to bundle these codes so that finally they becomes a single file that can be run in the browser. Now, luckily, today most modern browsers natively supports ES modules. This means during development, there is a large chunk of work that we no longer need to do because the browser can now handle them natively. So the premise of Vite during development is we are going to author our code as native ES modules. And the browser will take these ES modules and then parse the file and look for your import statements and then send HTTP requests for each module to the dev server. And the dev server just serve these modules as is with very lightweight processing. So a lot of work is done by the browser natively, which is why there's little preparation that we need when we start up the server. Another aspect of it is if you have large dependencies, Vite will smartly pre-bundle them using ES build to reduce the number of requests that the browser needs to make to your dev server. Now, this bundling process is done with ES build. ES build is a tool, excellent tool written by Evan Wallace, the CTO of Figma, and ES build is written in Go, which is a compiled to native language. So it is orders of magnitude faster than equivalent bundlers that's written in JavaScript. So with these factors combined, Vite provides you with an extremely fast and lean development experience. All right, so enough for why Vite. I think the fastness, how fast Vite is can only be experienced when you actually try it yourself. So let's do that now. I'm going to switch to my terminal here. And to get started with Vite, first make sure you have Node.js and npm installed on your system. So once you have that, simply run the command npm init @vitejs/app. So this will now ask you for a project name. So I'm just going to say hello Vite. And it will ask you to select a framework. Surprise, Vite is actually framework agnostic. So it's not just for Vue. So even if you are using React or Preact, you can actually use Vite to run those frameworks as well. In fact, for this first demo, we're not going to use any framework at all. So we're just going to go with the vanilla template. We also provide you with TypeScript support out of the box. But for now, we're going to just pick the vanilla. So I'm going to cd hello Vite. And before we do anything, it does ask you to install npm dependencies. But before we do anything, I'm going to open up my editor. And just take a look at the folder structure. As you can see, this is extremely minimal. We have an index HTML. The index HTML has a script type equals module with a source pointing to main.js, which is right here next to it. Now, we can actually run this with any simple HTTP server without any special features. This is valid syntax for native ESM usage, right? And inside here, we see something special. We are importing some CSS. So we're going to be talking about CSS just in a minute. And now let's look at package.json. As you can see, Vite is the only dependency that we need here. And we have a few npm scripts. We have a dev script, we have a build script, and we have a serve script. So very straightforward. So let's run npm install now. I'm going to be running npm install. And as you can see, the installation is extremely fast. There are total 13 packages installed. That's how lean Vite is. So I don't think I have Vite cache locally here. So this install is actually legit from the registry. So that took less than a second, right? And now I can run npm run dev and start the server. And that also didn't take long. So now we have a local server running. So I'm going to be opening this. And as we can see, hello Vite. Okay, so that is the vanilla dev server. And if we go back to our code, notice that this is really not different from a simple HTTP server. There's nothing special going on here. But the cool part is if we rename this to TypeScript and change this to TypeScript, and I'm going to, well, it actually already reloaded, but I'm going to restart the server just to make sure this works, right? So it still works, right? Inside a Vite project, you can in fact, I'm going to move this around. Inside a Vite project, you can in fact link directly to TypeScript files, and Vite will transpile it automatically. Now, this means TypeScript works out of the box. Now, one thing important to know here is that TypeScript in Vite is transpile only, which means Vite does not do any type checking for you. So one of the reasons we do this is first, we are using esbuild to transpile the TypeScript files. Again, esbuild was written in Go, so it is in fact up to 30 times faster than transpiling your TS files with TypeScript itself, which is written in JavaScript, right? So when we are using esbuild to transpile, because it doesn't do type checking, so if you're importing a type, make sure to do import type from another file. So this is one thing people kind of get tripped up on, but when you're using this, we believe this is a really, really small price to pay in order to get this greatly improved performance when you have a large TypeScript project. Another reason why we opt to do transpile only and do not do type checking inside Vite is because if you have a properly set up IDE like VS Code with tsconfig in your project, likely you already get all the TypeScript type checking enhanced directly in your IDE. So TypeScript is already running as part of your IDE, right? So essentially Vite says, okay, we'll leave that to your IDE and your build process, but during development, Vite is not going to concern itself with type checking, right? Because we already have other tools handling that part. Great, so that is TypeScript. Another important aspect of this, so as we can see, we can actually import CSS right here. So let's look at the CSS here. I'm going to be changing the color here. Let's say red. As you can see, it updated instantly. And notice the address bar here. Green. Notice there's actually no reload. I'm going to open the elements pane here and inspect this, right? So now let's edit again. As you can see, the page did not reload. This is hot updating. This imported CSS is being loaded in the head here. As you can see, it's here. So if we edit it, this is hot updated right here without loading the page. Now this is starting to get into the magical territory of Vite because a simple basic HTTP server does not do this for you. There's no hot reloading. There's no automatic page reloading. For example, if I update my TypeScript here, so here's the hello Vite. I'm going to just add 2 of these, right? So this reloads the page because there's no specific logic that's set up in this project to handle TypeScript file updates. But CSS hot reloading works out of the box. Now, we're going to be talk about a bit more CSS later, but now I also want to show off one thing, right? So we are used to installing dependencies and using dependencies from npm. For example, I want to use Lodash. So I'm going to say import debounce from Lodash, yes, right? So in an actual browser, without any pre-processing, this code will not work if this is a native ES module that's served to the browser. One of the reasons being that the browser doesn't really know what is npm. It doesn't know where to resolve dependencies, right? So to the browser, this is what we call an invalid specifier, okay? But Vite knows how to handle it. So let's install. I'm going to open up a new tab here, and I'm going to say npm install load-es. So we installed that, and I'm going to restart the server. npm run dev. Oops. So now we have load-es. You see the IDE actually figured out we installed load-es, so it now has type definitions. And if we go into the browser, I'm going to log just to see if we have the debounce element. Look at the console. Yes, we do get the debounce function from load-es, which is great. So yeah, so Vite also handles npm dependencies for you. Now, one of the cool thing here is if we look at the debounce, we look at the network. Make it smaller. As you can see, Vite actually combined load-es, which is a collection of many small modules, into a single file, so it loads faster than it normally would if you load-es over native ES modules. So another important detail for performance during development. Okay, so that's npm dependencies. Now let's talk about a bit more about CSS. So in a lot of projects, we're going to have to use post CSS. A lot of people use Tailwind. Sometimes you need auto prefixer, right? Post CSS is almost essential in our modern front-end workflows. So Vite comes with post CSS support out of the box. This means you don't need to even install post CSS itself. If you need a plugin, just install that plugin and then use it. So here I'm going to just say post npm install post CSS nesting. So this is a plugin that allows you to have nesting inside your CSS files. So once we install that, I'm going to be simply creating a post css.config.js. Now, you can also put this in .postcssrc or as a property in your package.json. Vite uses the postcss load config package to automatically look for postcss config in all those places. Now, inside here, I'm going to say plugins require postcss nested. Okay. So once we have that, let's verify if it actually works. I'm going to be given, so here we have an h1 inside app. So I'm going to say h1 color red. Let's see if this works. It does not, because we once we updated post CSS config, we probably need to restart our dev server. So, what is going on? Cannot find module post CSS nested. Because we installed the wrong package, it seems. Let's see. Now it works. So if we look into the rendered style here, this is the processed code, right? So this is our source code, and this is the process code. Another way for you to inspect a lot of the internals of how Vite works is, because everything is served over individual modules, you can use the network tab to do the debugging in a lot of situations. So here I'm going to just refresh the page, and as you can see, we loaded some files from Vite internals, but as you can see, the main TS request is right here. So if you look into it, you can actually see the code that has been transpiled by Vite into plain JavaScript, and there's inline source map. So debugging breakpoints would work as well. Now, the style.css, now this is JavaScript, in fact, right? Vite actually converts the CSS imports into JavaScript because that's what the browser can process. And this is the actual code that is injecting into the head at runtime. So Vite comes with this built-in CSS hot reloading little runtime that is able to handle the magic here. So if we change this to blue, and we would see it update right here, right? So that's post CSS. Now we also have CSS modules. So if we add another file, says example.module.css. Now all you need to do is make sure this file ends in the .module.css postfix. So I'm going to say .title color pink. And the way CSS modules work, if you have never used it before, is when you import styles from example.module.css, right? Yes, so I'm getting some red squishes here because this is a TypeScript file and TypeScript doesn't understand the CSS here. But if we log the styles here in the browser and go to the console, you see that CSS modules actually converts each class in your CSS module file into a corresponding string. Now this string is hashed, so it won't conflict. It avoids conflict. Essentially, it makes every class in your module CSS file have its own hashed scope, so it doesn't conflict with any other CSS module files. So you can have two CSS module files, both with .title, and they would not conflict. So here, what we can do is give this, say, class equals styles.title. And let's see. So yeah, it has that, but it has a lower specificity, so it got overwritten. So, but if we remove this part here, now it becomes pink because it gets that CSS module class. So yep, CSS module, just add the postfix to your file name and it works. Okay, so if you also want to use preprocessors like Sass or Less, again, they work out of the box. Let's say npm install Sass. So there's no need to install a special Vite plugin for this. All of this is handled directly inside Vite. All you need to do is install the preprocessor itself. So I just installed SAS. This means inside my project, if I just rename this to SCSS, and I change it to this, as you can see, it still works. It's the same thing being inserted. So to make sure this is in fact working, I'm going to say, forgive me because I haven't used SAS for quite a while. Color green. I think that's how SAS variables work, right? So I'm going to replace it here. Maybe change it to something else so that we know it actually works. Yes, it updated. Well, the H1 has more specificity, so unfortunately, I'm going to comment out this line. Whoops. Now, since style is not defined, oh, because we are using it here. So, of course, I'm just gonna remove that. Okay, so now it works. As you can see, we're getting the blue from our SAS. And if we edit our SAS file, sorry for all the moving around here. So if we edit our SAS file, as you can see, it hot updates as well. So hot reloading for all the preprocessors built in as well. Great. So in addition to CSS, Vite also provides some additional cool features, like you can directly import something that is WebAssembly, or you can load a file with the $worker query to load it as a worker. So you'll get this. And then you can this automatically becomes a worker constructor that you can instantiate. It's a web worker. And one additional thing that we need to talk about is how Vite handles static assets. Okay, so as we can see, we have this SVG file here, which is cool. So I'm going to actually just import this SVG favicon from favicon.svg, and I'm going to log it here. And as you can see, it gives you back a string. So this string can then be used inside your templates. Say I'm going just to say favicon. And as you can see, we use that. When you import a static asset, like a PNG file, an SVG file, by default, it just gives you back the URL that the asset is going to be available at. So you can use that URL inside your templates. And when you build this, the URL will automatically be updated to the correct one. So we're going to be talking a bit about this when we get to the production build. So that's what we call URL imports. So what we consider here is a imported asset. When you import an asset, it's considered part of our module graph. The file is considered part of the module graph. So this is different because I'm actually going to build the project here. So I'm going to say npm run build. And as you can see, the output of the assets here, we moved this favicon SVG into the assets directory. So the assets directory now contains a dist assets favicon with a bunch of hash, right? So in production, in our code here, the log here is actually going to log this /assets favicon hash.svg here. So which is important because if you simply write favicon.svg here, that is not going to work because the asset, without actually importing it here, it's not going to be considered part of the module graph. So, but in some cases, we may want the static assets to be exactly where we want it to be here, without, say, moving it around and adding a hash to it. So in that case, we can create a special directory called public here. Anything inside public will be available directly at the root. So if we move the favicon.svg into the public directory here, so now this will work. Note you do not need to append this /public here. Anything under public is served at the server root. Okay, so now, as you can see, this still works. And when you build, if we run the build again, now you can see there's no longer this hashed asset that's being created. And if we're going to inspect the disk output, as you can see, favicon.svg is in fact copied verbatim into the root of the disk directory, so that when you refer to it as /favicon.svg, it will work as is. Okay, so here it is important to sort of differentiate between the two types of assets in Vite. The first is an asset that you import. You import using the JavaScript import statement. This is what we call an imported asset. These assets will be part of the module graph, and during build, they will in fact be hashed and moved to the under the assets directory. And all references to it inside your code base will automatically be rewritten. Because this value here will be different between development and build. Now, if you want the file to be preserved, the file name to be preserved exactly the same, and you want the file to be served exactly at project root, then you put them inside the public directory. And then you can reference it as static strings like this. We've went through the basic setup now, and I believe a lot of you are now curious, like, how do we get this to work with Vue? Now, we could just start from this template and then add Vue support, because it is in fact extremely simple. Now, of course, if you run npm init Vue and npm init at vite.js/app, and then you pick the Vue template, everything will be already there for you. But I'm just going to showcase how easy it is to add a framework support into Vite. Now, currently, we have a bunch of additional dependencies here. So I'm going to removing all the things that we don't really want, don't really need anymore. And just go back to this. I'm going to say npm install. That's going to remove a bunch of things. Then I'm going to install vite.js/plugin Vue. I would consider this a development dependency. So now this will take a little while because now we install a bunch of Vue specific packages. And now if we go back to here and create a Vue file, an app.vue template h1 hello Vue, right? Now what we can do is import app from app.vue. Oh, we didn't. We also need to install Vue itself, of course. So I'm going to say Vue at next. More importantly, Vue.js plugin Vue has a peer dependency on @vue/compiler sfc. Okay, so we installed the Vue.js plugin, Vue itself, and Vue's compiler SFC. So this is the Vue 3 package that handles the compilation of Vue single file components. Now, once we have all of these, we can say import create app from Vue and create app mount app. Okay, let's do this again. Oh, it says fail to parse. Oh, okay, of course. Now, we only imported this, but we did not configure the config file. So now it is time to introduce the configuration part. Now rest assured, this is nothing like Webpack config files. So I'm just going to say web vite.config.js. You can use ES module syntax here. Vite will automatically handle that for you. So I'm going to say export default plugins. Import Vue from @Vue.js plugin Vue. Maybe let's call it Vue plugin. So I'm just going to do it here. That's all you need. Okay, so with this in mind, and we start, look at our project. Great, hello Vue. Look at that in all its glory. So I'm going to be editing my app Vue just to make sure that the hot module replacement works. Fantastic, right? So I'm going to say style scoped h1 color red. Yeah, we need to. We actually, because we deleted the PostCSS nesting plugin, and in fact, the PostCSS config automatically applies to our Vue files as well. We need to actually delete this, and I'm going to restart the server. And as you can see, it is now red. If we change it to green, hot update. Great, so now this is the familiar territory if you've used Vue CLI before. So we're not going to dig deeper into this, but as you can see, the whole process of setting up Vue is we installed Vue and Vue compiler SFC, and we installed the dependency. This should actually be a dev dependency. So this package.json will be exactly what the Vue template scaffolds for you, right? So the integration, the framework specific integration is very, very lightweight. And we also provide React support out of the box with hot module replacement. In fact, during the design of Vite, we put a lot of work into making sure the plugin format, the plugin interface is powerful and flexible enough so that we can encapsulate very advanced and complex functionalities inside plugins, but for the plugins themselves to be extremely easy to use. Okay, so now we've already showcased how the build command works. So if you do npm run build, which essentially runs Vite build, it just builds your asset in production. And another command that we did not showcase is npm run, I believe it is called serve, yes. So serve runs the Vite preview command. So if you do npm run serve, it starts a production preview server. So now this is different from the dev server, which if you remember, the default port is 3000. Now this preview server is essentially an actual normal HTTP server that tries to simulate a production node HTTP server that serves only static assets, because it essentially serves your dist directory as a static file server. So as you can see, this is the build dist site. This is our development site. So Vite, although it serves your files over native ESM during dev, and it bundles your code with rollup for production, we have putting a lot of work making sure the output is consistent between dev and build. so that you don't need to worry too much about figuring out how to actually do deploy the ES modules to production, right? We make sure that you can get the best of native ES modules during development, but you can also get the best performance in production. So we in fact perform quite a bit advanced build optimizations for your Vite apps. So if you check out our website here, there is a specific section called build optimizations. One cool feature that you get out of the box for free is CSS code splitting, right? So inside our app, it is possible for us to have a async chunk. So I'm going to call it async.js, and the async.js is going to be importing some CSS. So we already changed this to Sass. So I'm going to just install Sass again, I guess. Install Sass. So .scss, and inside our main TS, I'm going to say import. So the way you do code splitting with ES modules is you simply do import async.js. Then I'm going to just lock the module so we actually use this async chunk. So once you have a lazy dynamic import here, if we run build again, as you can see, now we have a dedicated async chunk for it. So this is going to be loaded only when this is called. Now we are calling this directly on page load, but you can use this to define a view async component, for example, right? So an async chunk, which imports some CSS, right? So this CSS is only used by this async chunk. So as you can see in the output, we have an async chunk for the JS. We also have a separate CSS file aside from the index that is the async CSS that's associated with that async chunk only. And if I start the production server again and we load it, and let's go into the network tab to inspect the network. As you can see, so this is the request for the async JS, and oh, why can't I move it fast? So this is the request for the JS. This is the request for the CSS. As you can see, the two requests are made in parallel at the same time. So this is the optimization that Vite actually, again, gives you out of the box, is that when an async JavaScript chunk is loaded, its associated CSS is loaded in parallel with it. So you don't have to wait until the JS chunk is loaded, then load the CSS, right? We make sure they're loaded in parallel as much as possible. Now, there are other cases where an async chunk and the main chunk may both import a third file, or two async chunks both import a third file, right? So Vite additionally makes sure in those scenarios, which is illustrated here, two async chunks both have a direct import to a third module. Now, when you load chunk A, Vite will actually make sure A and C are loaded also in parallel. So there's no wasted network run trips. Again, you get this out of the box when you build with Vite. It is important to emphasize that if you have an existing Vue CLI project or a created React app project, it is relatively straightforward to move over. There are maybe a few things that you need to pay attention to. So we're going to be talking about them here. The first thing that I want to mention is the env variables. If you have used Vue CLI, you should know about the env variables. So similar to Vue CLI, Vite also automatically loads the env env variables from your .env files. Now, one thing that you need to pay attention to is they are, instead of exposing these env files on process.env, which is in fact a Node.js concept, we've opted to move it over to something that is more ES module specific. That is the import meta global special global. Now, import meta is a native special object that is present in all native ES modules. Now, Vite attaches a special nested object called .env onto import meta. So this env object is where Vite exposes all its Vite specific env variables. Now, some of the built-in env variables include mode, base URL, prod, or dev. Now, and if you provide an env file yourself, inside the env files, if you want to expose an env variable to Vite, you need to prefix with the Vite underscore prefix. This is so that you don't accidentally expose sensitive things like DB password in your env files to the client files, because all of these will be actually become part of your client-side bundle. You don't want to expose sensitive information in there. So prefix things you want to expose to Vite with the Vite underscore prefix, and then you can access it as import.meta.env Vite some key. Right? So in Vue CLI, this is going to be process.env.view underscore blah, blah, blah. Now you just replace it with this. Okay, so this is env variables. Another common thing that people are used to when they're using Webpack is you may, in some cases, use require calls. Now, Webpack supports both ES imports and require calls mixed in the same project. But in Vite, we strongly recommend against it. In fact, this probably won't work in your source file because all the files are served as native ES modules. So we only use native ES imports. There's no require that's present because require is technically a Node.js concept. And Node.js is also moving towards native ESM. So if you have your own code that is using require, you should migrate them to native ES modules if you want to use Vite. Now, if you have a dependency that is using require in their source code, Vite does handle that for you because when we pre-bundle the dependencies, ESBuild will handle the require calls and bundle them together. So the final file is actually a valid ES module. But in your own code, you should no longer use require anywhere if you're using Vite. Okay, so the final thing that a Webpack user may be used to is a Webpack feature called required.context. It's a special Webpack feature that allows you to essentially inspect the contents of a directory at build time, and then you get an object containing those files at runtime. So in Vite, we do have an equivalent called glob import. So glob import, the syntax is import.meta.glob. This allows you to say, you're essentially saying, I want to glob the files on my file system using this pattern at build time. And at runtime, I'm going to be getting back an object that looks like this. Right? So by default, glob is lazy. Every globbed file will become a dynamic import function. So you can call this function to get to dynamically load the module. So these modules will also be code split in your final build bundle. If you want to actually load all of them eagerly, you can then use import.meta.glob eager, which will directly give you an object containing all the modules that you have just globbed. So this is very useful, say, if you're building a custom file system-based routing system. This is in fact what a lot of people use it for. Okay, so I believe this covers most of the stuff, the basic features of Vite. Now, obviously, there are advanced content, for example, how to write a custom plugin. Vite plugins are extremely powerful. They extend Roller's plugin interface and allows you to do a lot of interesting things. Now, we're not going to cover it here, but if you're looking for third-party plugins that is written by our community, there is a great repository called Awesome Vite on GitHub. that lists tons of resources and plugins and boilerplates that's contributed by the community. So if you're looking for stuff like that, make sure to check it out. And that's it for the video. Thank you very much, and hope to see you build cool stuff with Vite.
Hi, my name is David Chukanwadiobu, and you're welcome. To round up this course, we'll be exploring some extra features that Vitest provides, such as the Vitest UI and adding coverage to our tests.